The Bourbon Junkies keep doing barrel picks, and this time Gene Nassif was involved. Does that make it better than any other rest? Let's check it out. Hey friends, welcome back to Big Nate's Whiskey Lounge. I'm Nate, coming at you with another review of a brand new Bourbon Junkies barrel pick. Well, this one's a blend. But today we have Nassif Family Reserve American Whiskey. This one is Blinded by the Light. Got Timothy the Rabbit on it, being sunrayed on him. This is comes in at 107 proof, so 53.5% ABV. This is a blend of well-aged light whiskey. It is then blended with high rye bourbon and rye whiskey. So this makes a blend, American whiskey, because it's those three things. Light whiskey has to be called light whiskey. It doesn't, and then it's a blend of bourbon and rye. So it's technically a Burr rye, but it's not a Burr rye because that would be just bourbon and rye. Because they put the light whiskey in there too, it just has to be called a American whiskey. So this comes from Gene Nassif, the Nassif Family Reserve. This is Cat's Eye Distillery. You may have heard of Nassif Family Reserve. You may have heard of Cat's Eye. But you've probably heard of Obtainium. I have a bottle of the Canadian rye that the Junkies did from Cat's Eye. And then they do the Obtainium light whiskey, which I have not yet had. Looking forward to that. I'm a big fan of Gene Nassif's. He does some I've watched him join some other YouTuber streams. He's a real nice guy, knows his stuff, and he and his family do some really cool things with whiskey. So they are they're a distillery to watch, a distillery to follow, and a distillery to promote as well as support. I'm going to give this plug because I really like something they did. Over the weekend, this past weekend, the Cat's Eye Distillery disclosed that they were considering coming in a different direction. Some of the whiskey that they were able to obtain from MGP was a little bit younger than what some of their other blends were. And so they basically asked the public, not that they're always going to go with that, but they just wanted public opinion of what they should do. They were able to come into some other whiskey, I believe it was Iowa whiskey. And so they basically asked, do you want us to continue to make blends using younger MGP with this, or do you want us to simply put out the good stuff that we can as long as we disclose what it is? I really appreciate that out of them, and just the transparency and everything. I think that's what does the Nassif families and Cat's Eye Distillery the most good, is the fact that they're doing stuff that a lot of other people wouldn't, but the fact is they are disclosing it and being extremely transparent about it, and I think that pays off. I am always willing to try something if you're willing to be transparent about it and support you. So good on you guys. Ooh, black synthetic coke. That's cool. Let's give this a pour. And so it's not going to be a true comparison. Now, it does not say where it was distilled. If I had to guess, my guess would be that the light whiskey might be MGP light whiskey. I don't want to go further as to saying, oh, it's all MGP blended. Don't know that for sure. So can't say that. My guess is that the light whiskey is MGP light whiskey, maybe an MGP rye, maybe an MGP bourbon. Don't know. That's okay. We're going to go with this. We're going to give it a pour. I had the Clearwater, which was an MGP light whiskey, but I can't do a true comparison because they're different. This is a blend with bourbon and rye as well. Interesting nose. I got grapey on the nose. Yeah, that's a grape note. Rye's coming through because I said it's a blend of light whiskey, high rye bourbon, and rye. Now the light whiskey is going to be extremely high corn. If I'm not mistaken, light whiskey has to be 80% corn. Light oakiness, so light whiskey is allowed to be with used barrels, and oftentimes that is done because why not? If you can use used barrels, use used barrels. Right now I am looking up the Bourbon Junkies notes on this. Those are their tasting notes. And I don't mean to cheat, but let's give this a taste. So, grapey, a little bit of oak. The proof is coming through a little bit. It's nothing killing me or anything. I got a little bit of pineapple on that. Grape and pineapple. Interesting. Let's give this a taste. Oh, interesting. That is very unique. I was almost ready to start comparing it to other burr ryes, but it's not a burr rye. I was about to pull out Redwood Empire Lost Monarch. There's a note in there that is very different than any other blend I've had. And I like it. The grapiness does come through in the taste. Proof is not killing me at all. Now that being said, this here was the Jack Daniel's Single Barrel Proof, so I am acclimated a little bit, so that could be what's going on. So Sean's notes on this are butterscotch, honeycomb, cinnamon applesauce. Oh yeah, Sean, I get the cinnamon. I get the fake cinnamon applesauce. So like the Mott's. So I grew up very spoiled. My mom made applesauce. She made it the really good. You got the chunky, mushed, but so when you bit into it, it mushed. But they were chunky apples. Love that. I'm thinking like the Mott's, basically just the smooth with that. It tastes really good, but it's just different. So I am getting the cinnamon applesauce on that, Sean. Dan's tasting notes: honey red apples, King of the North-esque, with a bready citrus note. Yeah, there is a kind of a citrusy note in there maybe that was where I was getting the pineapple from. Pineapple's not citrus, I know that, but it was kind of kicking me in that direction. As far as King of the North was a Canadian rye. I did a review on that back in January. And actually, Gene Nassif, and this made my day, commented and gave the mash bill on that rye, because I mentioned Canadian rye doesn't really disclose that because they don't really have to, and it's the Canadian rules for rye are just very different. Well, Gene was kind enough to disclose in a comment on my video the mash bill, which like made my week. I'm still talking about it, so maybe it made my year. I really like this. And to be honest with you, I like this a lot better than their Clearwater light whiskey pick. It's very different. Again, this is light whiskey. This has light whiskey in it. Man, this was a great pick. If you guys got the opportunity to get this, you are not going to be disappointed. I believe this was a 300 bottle yield, which is almost double. Not quite double. Usually, depending on the batch, it's like 180 to 200. 200 is very high. But almost double some of the batches that the Junkies get. And part of that's because it was a blend, so it created more. This to date, I believe, is my favorite Junkies pick. Of the ones I have, you can go back. Every Junkies pick I own, which is probably almost about 10 now. This is my favorite so far. Dan, Sean, Gene, you knocked this out of the park. This is fantastic. Look forward to the other stuff coming. Man, that is so good. And you guys crushed it with your tasting notes. I am not a professional whiskey taster, unlike Josh from Somebody Say Whiskey. So sometimes it's helpful just to see what other people are thinking as far as tasting notes. Tasting notes aren't always... Keep in mind, there's subjectiveness to it. So sometimes it's, hey, I'm getting this, are you as well? And sometimes, yes, the element of suggestion is very powerful. But sometimes that's okay. I've got one more video to shoot after this, so I got to be careful. I'm going to drink this dram, and obviously you can't tell how much I poured because I've got the podcast blacked out Glen. So you have no idea how much I've had. I've had quite a bit. I believe I poured about 2 ounces, and I'm down to probably about half an ounce. Man, I could drink that all day long. Junkies, do more of this. I love this. Dan, Sean, you guys did fantastic on this blend. Or picking this blend. Gene, bro, this is something special. Join the Junkies Patreon to get access to stuff like this. Depending on what level you're at, and depending on the yield, will depend on you getting the availability. However, with a yield of 300 in this blend, I believe it made it through every tier. So even if you're at the lowest tier, you would have had a shot at this. And this was only a $50 bottle. This was a $50 blend versus this was 100. I believe that was 100. And it's no, we're talking, there's 30 proof points difference. So there's a big difference in alcohol content. That doesn't matter. I believe that I have shown over the last couple of weeks doing ECBP and larceny barrel proof and things, and you will have seen my last video. I picked the Jack Daniels, the 131 proof or whatever, which one that I have. I realized that I might be kind of a proof hound because I've gotten to a point where I can acclimate to proof. Proof doesn't kill me as much as it used to, and I'm appreciating the flavors that higher proof stuff can bring. However, if you get a blend that is just out of this world, I don't care what the proof point is. It's just an enjoyable. I'm going to savor this bottle. I hope that if you have a bottle, you will as well. I cannot say enough about this. Other than to say, I am proud to know Dan and Sean and to have access to stuff like this, and I hope that you do too. They did not pay me to do this video. I feel stupid having to say that because I praised it so much. I feel like maybe I have to. It's not a paid endorsement, not paid by Cat's Eye, not paid by Bourbon Junkies. I consider Dan and Sean friends, and I hope one day to meet Gene Nassif. But that's going to do it for the Nassif Family Reserve, the Bourbon Junkies Blinded by the Light, American whiskey blend of light whiskey, bourbon, and rye. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.